Today we're gonna look at a new game from Arcane Studios called Deathloop, and I'm gonna talk about both the UI and I'm gonna show you a little bit of gameplay from the beginning of the game. Video games are very strongly connected to everything I do because back in '98 I actually started working in the industry. I started making my very first website ever by making a website for my Quake team. I could say that my entire career actually started with video games, so I'm still playing video games, I'm still pretty active in it. I don't play a lot of video games and I pick them very carefully, but Arcane Studios games are very special to me. I loved both Prey, of course the new one, and all the Dishonored games, including all the DLCs. They were just amazing, immersive, and super creative, and this is what I'm looking for in video games. Hey, so welcome to Deathloop. I'll talk a little bit more about the gameplay, my thoughts on how fun it is, and all the supposedly innovative mechanics. Quick summary is that I like this game so far. It's fun to play and the visuals, especially that 60s vibe, look amazing. But before we dive into the game, I always look at the menus and panels first. After all, it's UI. So let's stop with the shooting for a second and take a look. We're in the options, and the first thing that I see is that the labels within those fields, within those elements that you modify here on the left side, are very close to the edge. So that makes them a little bit unreadable and they could be really moved a little bit to the right. There is also a lot of progress bars, but some of the elements are actually looking like progress bars, but they're simple toggles like this one. And this is not the right way to actually show progress bars because it can be truly confusing to people. They might seem like there is like a third option in between maybe or something. The main menu is a classic but with a pretty nice overlay under the elements, and I like how the orange thing kind of goes under the text, but I don't really like that overlay that keeps following the mouse cursor. There's plenty of space on the left and right side of both guns to actually show that information right away or when you hover. And also information in that overlay is super condensed and also super close to the edge and really badly aligned. There should be a lot more white space in those boxes. Okay, the game is loading. There's a nice infinity animation at the bottom and just the logo at the top and some imagery. And yeah, talking about starting of a game by being killed apparently, which I guess is pretty cool because it's like a different kind of backstory or, you know, backstabbing story. Yeah, that's a bad joke. But anyway, yeah, so you start the game, then you die, game over. They should just roll the credits right now. So the thing that should happen now would be like a fade to black and then like the end. Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's why it's called Deathloop, because it's in a loop. So each time you die, you wake up on a beach, which kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Death Stranding beach. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Okay, before we get into the game, still, let's look at some of the UI elements, like those little subtitles, and yeah, I would give them a little bit more padding here. Also, the text is a little small, but so far those overlays actually look a lot better than the ones in the menu. But yeah, once we get into the menu, it's a little bit more confusing. I don't know what I'm clicking here and what I'm doing completely in terms of like what does what. Do I select this one or that one, or do they select both, or like what to do here? Okay, let's switch to a different tab. So we have like an explore this place lead where the text is like almost touching the top border and there's plenty of space at the bottom of it. So this should all be kind of moved a little bit down. And also the line here is a little bit too long. Just to make it more readable, it should probably break after the word dead. But okay, let's move a little bit forward in the game. So I always run and yeah, it's kind of like exhausting to the character, I guess. But those text pieces that are showing up in like a 3D space, they're like a tutorial kind of elements, but they look really cool because of that font. I just wish that font wasn't used for longer text in some of the menus. Skipping ahead a little bit, once I see text like that floating, you know, mid-air, I'm always trying to see how it looks like from the bottom. It's kind of like a thing that I do, and apparently it's just completely invisible from the bottom, and yeah, then it just fades away. So let's open a door and let's go explore. And that rhyme was completely unintentional.
Okay. Feels familiar. This place is mine. makes me feel funny.
Okay, so I took a little trinket, and what I find odd about this screen is that the title of it, Trinkets, is center aligned and the rest is left aligned. It should be probably all left aligned just for better readability, kind of like those notes here. That actually looks good.
Well, this is creepy.
But here as well, the alignment of like those names on those smaller pieces is a little bit off. Before we get back to the UI, let's just kick this guy off the cliff. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, the shooting is fun. It's a little bit slower than the games that I play normally, but it's not bad. It's quite satisfying actually. And man, that art style. If I ever build a studio, it's gonna look exactly like this, with like a little like fizzy pop or whatever, so I can heal myself after a bad day of design work. Let's look at one more room with like a center fireplace, which is also something that I'm secretly hoping to actually do in my house, but don't tell anyone. Okay, jumping ahead in time a little bit, here is like a summary screen after I completed one of the levels, and yeah, that title is a little bit too far from the subtitle text. But the art style of this game is just top notch. I just wish the typography was a little bit better. Same here, as you can see, it's like all very condensed and very close together. The left padding is too small and the thing on the top is kind of like collapsed a little bit to the bottom of the frame. The overlay, the tooltip is also pretty weird. And yeah, everything here is like a little bit higher to the top and doesn't look right. It's just kind of not aligned to the Deathloop icon and just kind of hard to read. Okay, but let's get back to the game, because the game is what's important here. All those UI elements, you're gonna get used to it and then you're gonna probably use them automatically anyway. And the game itself is actually feeling very familiar in terms of the style and the vibe, but it's more familiar with like BioShock than Arcane games, which works for me because BioShock was one of my favorite games ever. There are turrets that you can hack so they can attack the enemies for you. There are sensors or cameras that you can hack as well. And a lot of guns, which is fun because you can then switch and have a lot of variety. And there is double jump too. Oh, and I just remembered that very similar kind of briefcase turrets were also in Prey, that you could carry to a different location and then kind of deploy them there. And this is a fun way to get rid of a lot of the enemies. Every time I do something like this, I feel like super smart. Like, I didn't even shoot anybody and they're all dead. And there's like this evil lady, Juliana, hunting you. So yeah, it's like a typical shooting and strafing, and this gun is like so slow to reload. But I'm just getting her a little bit, I guess. Maybe not like a lot of damage, but still there's like something going on. And yeah, she's pretty chill and relaxed, and oh, I guess she fell into like a almost T-pose like in Cyberpunk, and then I can just shoot her without being hurt myself, so I just found a bug. Okay, let's explore our first real superpower, Shift, which apparently looks like the kind of movement from Dishonored. It even has a very similar art style, but also when they're explaining it in this little tutorial window, see how out of place the text and the button at the bottom are. But when you can do like this teleportation thing, who cares about the UI, right? Anyway, I'm not gonna bore you with like a full gameplay video because this is not really what this channel is about, but I wanted to show you a couple of different locations and a different kind of styles and vibes that this game have, because I really appreciate all the little details. I just wish the interface was a little bit better, but it really disappears into the background pretty quickly once you start shooting people and exploring the story. If you're playing this game, let me know in the comments what you think about it, and if you ever played Dishonored or Prey, also let me know what you thought about those games, because I think that they were one of the like more amazing experiences that I had in my gaming history. So both Prey and Dishonored were really great. I've already done it twice with The Last of Us Part 2 and then Doom Eternal. And I prefer those, first-person shooter games, but I'm gonna play all the games that I believe have something interesting in them and that they can be analyzed, from the perspective of user interfaces.